Hello, and welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. Our sponsors this week are Zocdoc and FastMail. I'm joined once again by William Gallagher. At least I'm pretty sure it's William. He may have returned from his brief tenure at TUAW. This week, premium subscribers get the ad-free episode. As always, an Apple Insider Plus segment will be about wearables, our history with them, and generally what we think. Maybe we want some more. I wouldn't mind a pair of shoes. What about you, William?
Okay. I thought you were going to say, how are you? And I was ready to say grumpy for all sorts of reasons. But actually, that just made me laugh there. I did a young writers thing. I was at an award ceremony stuff. And one of the young writers over the weekend had one of those shoes that as you walk, flashes a light. I want shoes like that. Give me that with an Apple logo, possibly. And I'd be in. Yeah. So there you go. Shoes, brighten everything.
Didn't they sell a pair of Apple's vintage shoes for hundreds of thousands of dollars recently?
Did. Yes.
Not my size, so I couldn't bid.
Right, yeah, that's what stopped me as well. Plus, it wasn't in blue, so,
Speaking of Steve Jobs and not his shoes, wait, what did they sell, though? They didn't sell his shoes, though. They sold his sports coat or something?
His whole suit? It must have been his whole suit. From 40 years ago,
right?
Came up recently.
The suit model he wore for his photograph with a Mac, I believe.
Oh, that one! Oh, goodness.
That's why it sold so. Because Steve Jobs wasn't known for suits; he was known for bare feet.
It's true.
I wanted to point out. So Steve Jobs Archive just dropped this bombshell on us right before we recorded. I managed to watch the short video at the top and read the full body of work. My goodness, very good. I want everyone to go check that out. This one is titled, what was this one called?
The Object of Our Life for it. And it's a 55-minute, really rare, I'd never even heard of this one before, talk that Steve Jobs gave in Aspen at a design conference in 1983. So before even the Mac was out. And it's astounding, I think, actually. I mean, he's nowhere near as polished as usual, and yet somehow that's very appealing. And Johnny Ive's intro in the Steve Jobs Archive talks about him being prophetic, and he really is. It's like he's already been to 2024 and gone back. So
I love watching people in the 70s and 80s describe things they expect the future to be, and anytime people discuss the internet and computers, but pre-internet, right?
Yeah,
it's always fun because we've heard Steve Jobs, we've heard other people describe how computers are going to be very important, and eventually they'll network together and we'll be able to send things to each other. But they still couldn't fathom what we would do at that time. No. In this very brief. It was 55 minutes, but I watched the 2-minute introduction, and even then it was enough just to get an idea of it. And he said by 1986, so this would be 3 years later, people would spend at least 3 hours a day on the machine, more time than they would spend driving their car. And that was his basically his description. And the people he was talking to, this was a design convention. So the entire concept of the speech and what he's talking about is why we design and why computers are going to be important for that in the future. And he made a sly jab at what was supposedly IBM at the time, who was overtaking Apple II sales by saying, anyone can sell, expletive-looking computers, but we're out here trying to design ones that look good, and it doesn't cost any more to make them look good. So we think that that's important, and I need your help. He said the designers, I need your help making sure this happens. So just a really fascinating look into Steve Jobs at, 28 years old? My goodness.
All the videos I usually watch about things of the future of the internet is like, there's one, was it an AT&T video that said by, 2000 or something, there'd be a computer in every city and things like this. And Arthur C. Clarke has done some what's the word for Arthur C. Clarke that's not a compliment? He's a bit up himself talking about the future of computers. Enough so that every time he's right, you're slightly irritated by it. But with Jobs, it actually feels like... Because he's not talking about the machines, he's talking about us and our use of, I think, which makes it timeless in a way.
I am still of the opinion that Apple TV Plus and the Steve Jobs Archive should work together to make a bespoke, only Apple could make documentary. I'm sure it'd be fluff. I'm sure it would be polished and they would ignore some of the more bad things, whatever, but they have access to things that we haven't even fathomed. This particular speech, there's been snippets, shared audio clips of it before. It's been mentioned before. Particularly, I am aware of the part where he describes how it's near the end of the speech where he just takes a moment to say, you know, I didn't make the clothes I'm wearing on my back. I didn't invent the language that I'm speaking. I didn't invent the mathematics that we use. So, and it was a question about retention at Apple. Why do so many people join Apple since its creation to now and not leave? Your retention numbers are crazy. And he basically said, well, we spend so much of our time of our lives using things that other people have made and other people have designed and created that it feels important to be a part of something that gets to put something back into the world. And I think that mantra still exists at Apple today.
It's a famous quote, and I've seen it as well, but I didn't realise actually where he first said it. So I'm quite riveted by this. I mean, obviously I'm into design and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so it's good. I also, Johnny Ive is... he writes really well in an introduction. They're straight to it.
I'm sure he's very edited.
Well, perhaps,
someone
yes.
looked at that. But yes, it was just all very well done. If you appreciate Apple at all, or even if you're just kind of whatever about Steve Jobs, it's still a good piece of history. Go check it out. I love that the archive continues to put out this stuff, and I hope we see more soon. So speaking of things from the past, by the way, he did mention artificial intelligence at the Lisa event that took place the day before, and I had to watch that clip. It's a minute long, and it's funny how we've been talking about this stuff for so long, right? So in the main event, he did mention that computers were 36 years old.
Yes.
In 1983. The concept of a computer was invented and started to be produced 36 years prior, and here we are today, well beyond 36 years later. So let's see.
I was waiting.
1984-ish to 2024 to make the math easy. Yeah, don't even think about it. But my goodness, yeah, we are 40 years later, and wow, just the amount of things that have changed. But here he is on stage, just showing off the Lisa and talking about how even today for him then they were thinking about computers thinking like people and human consciousness, and this has always been a thing. And now I wonder what he would think about 40 years later, Apple coming out with something called Apple Intelligence and people calling dumb algorithms that lie artificial intelligence, and where we are with all this today. I would love to hear what he had to say about that, but we have to move on because we didn't get to try out artificial intelligence for our reviews, but we got to try everything else in the macOS and iOS betas. And William and I, got to produce reviews looking at these features. And I've had a couple of questions about, well, how do you review a beta? Well, you do.
Yeah.
You just, you install it and you use it and then you write about it like anything else. I thought it was a funny question. It's the operating system. Apple announced it at WWDC. I'm sure we'll see some tweaks between now and then. Apple Intelligence will eventually arrive, and we will review that as well. Revisit iOS 18 and macOS again in the future. But this is a snapshot of today. What did you think of how the reviews turned out?
Well, I really enjoyed reading yours because although I did put on iOS 18 and eventually iPadOS 18 as well. Shouldn't have done, but I did. I was concentrating on the Mac. It's funny, until you said it there, the question about how do you review a beta, because these are operating systems, so they are underneath, they underpin everything. So actually, I get it. How do you start looking at these things? And what you do is, just like you said, you use them. You work away as normal, you see the differences. Plus, Apple did highlight some things, so you explicitly go, give those a poke and see what happens. There wasn't as much of that poking about on the Mac as there is on iOS, but still... Well, I was going to say, but still I like it. I'm just, you heard the hesitation. It's because I'm thinking, until Apple Intelligence rolls out, it feels like a stunted release. Especially in macOS. Yeah.
There was just specific macOS feature-wise. We got window tiling and
iPhone mirroring. That's very good. Well, it's not finished yet.
iPhone mirroring.
It's very good. Yes.
And then the Passwords app, of course.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I realised, I'm still a 1Password user, and for so many years, you go to a password field on a website, and there's been this little fight between Safari and 1Password over who displays their box first. And just in the last few days, I've been noticing 1Password doesn't get a look in. Apple's own password app just seems to, right, I'm here. I'm all you need. This is fine. That's it.
I like the Passwords app. I am excited that it's standalone now, and the team over there working on that is excellent. It can only mean good things. We're going to get more features in the future. They're obviously always iterating. And now that it's out of settings, it feels like it's taking a step up in importance. It's going to actually get more attention, more features, more spotlights in the future. So, but macOS... Yeah, outside of mirroring, which we've discussed, that's an interesting feature. I actually haven't tried yet because my Mac doesn't really get much use. But
every time I twitch, but okay, breathe. Yes,
that's the thing though. If I'm using my Mac, generally speaking, it might be through the Vision Pro. And I can't use iPhone mirroring inside the Vision Pro because it's a continuity feature and you can only have one at a time. So it's a trade-off.
And you can't have iPad mirroring on the Mac, which would actually be just as handy. But perhaps that will...
I'm not so sure how useful that would be other than, I get to access my device because you can run iPad apps on the Mac, right? I suppose the same could be said about iPhone apps on the Mac, but... people have found utility in it, so I think it's...
I'm surprised how much I've used it. I mean, the example I keep telling people is one of my online banks, their website is not very good, their iPhone app is better, so every now and again I call up the iPhone and use it on my Mac. But one thing that I was hoping that hasn't happened because of this is previously, last year on macOS Sonoma, there was this really clever feature that you could have widgets on your Mac that were from your iPhone. So even if you didn't have the Mac equivalent app, you could still install a widget like taken from your iPhone and put on the screen. And it's such a clever thing, and it's totally rubbish because if the app does anything at all, it's worthless on the Mac because you try to use it and it just puts up a message saying, please open this on your iPhone. And I thought maybe with iPhone mirroring, if your iPhone is connected, will the widgets just do what they need to do? And so far, no. They don't. No connect.
Of course, again, got to put this in the usual. It's a beta, so who knows? Things can change by the release. iOS 18-wise, I found it to be a pretty robust release. That was kind of my approach for the review. There's as much here as any other release, and we haven't even got to Apple Intelligence yet. So that's why I kind of approached it as, hey, look at there's just so much customization, so much opportunity throughout the operating system, so many new things to test and try out, and yet we still have this big tentpole feature that hasn't arrived yet.
Weird, isn't it? But you're right about it being robust. I've had one bug, which is, and it's still lasted on whatever the latest developer beta is, that every now and again, for no apparent reason, my iPhone will switch on Do Not Disturb. And this means I picked up the phone the other night to do something and found I'd missed 12 phone calls, every one of which I wanted to miss. So I'm filing a report with Apple. Please keep this bug. Yeah.
Please. Thank you for the feature. I think I've been thinking about this, and have you checked every device for different focus modes and different implementations? Because it's not just your iPhone. Your Mac can turn on Do Not Disturb.
Yes, because there's a way you can even tell Siri to figure it out for you and put on these turns. So unless Siri is thinking, he doesn't want to hear from them and switches it on, I can't see a pattern to it.
There's something odd happening here. Maybe screen time automations, or you've put it inside of maybe you use a home automation and you've put Do Not Disturb in there.
Not as far as
I don't know.
Tell.
Maybe you have a trigger action for turning on when you open the Books app to put it in Do Not Disturb, but you don't have a leave Do Not Disturb action. There's just so many ways that this could happen.
But it didn't happen before the betas, and I know I haven't changed anything. I have one automation that does that. I open a particular camera app and it switches on Do Not Disturb. But I've tried it, gone in and out, and I do remember to have the off Do Not Disturb afterwards. I think it's just a fluke, and it'll go away. But there is one bug going around. I mean, I know we're talking about new features, but this bug intrigues me because I haven't had it at all. A couple of people have said that they lose the icons on their iPhone and also the names of the apps underneath. So they've just got this grid of white, squarish things. Have you had?
That's only when you're changing the icons with the customization feature, and that's mostly a buffer. They'll eventually come back, or you could just change focus modes or something and kind of force it to happen. But I have seen that bug too. I think it's just the speed at which it's changing all the icons sometimes lags.
Well, I think this tells you how little adjustments I've been making. I made a page with not with breaking the grid, just a single line of them. I found that quite handy, but I haven't changed any icon colours.
I have a question. So we found out right before last episode, I don't think we got to it though, that how Apple is doing this new dark mode feature in beta 3, where the dark icons are forced onto every icon possible, and there's a filter applied on top if it can't be changed. And it's being done with basic math, apparently. There's not even, you can't even really call it an algorithm. It's just doing surface detection, and it's mathematically processing it. It's kind of funny. So they're not even doing this special notation of, oh, it's Facebook, so we're going to design a specific dark mode icon. No, like the math figured out to use the blue from the background for the letter and then change the background to dark. So I wanted to ask you, now that we've had a little bit of time to mess with this and see it with other apps and alternative icons, what do you think of Apple forcing this behavior onto every app? Is this kind of like, from your perspective, painful from a design side of things, like we're taking away the control of the designers, or is this a good thing because now we have more uniform consistency across the ecosystem, whether or not Google ever updates its app icons?
My heart says terrible idea, but then I never even switch on dark mode. I can't remember with
Fair.
Dark mode, it doesn't just, it reverses out, it puts black. Does it change app icons?
No, it's a separate dark. So there's dark mode across the system for how the apps behave, and then there's dark icon mode. Right. So when you're in the wiggle mode, you can tap a button in the top left corner, select customize, and then a drawer pops up from the bottom of the phone that lets you pick what icon types you want to use, whether it be light, dark, tinted, or dynamic.
Well, I would say I'll never use that, and I can say I have never at any point chosen a different icon for any app. But there are one or two where the icon is so ugly that I wouldn't mind changing it. So maybe you can't have Apple's overriding colour change on just one app that you don't like, can you? Oh, okay.
No, it's a uniform application across the entire system. But of course, individual app icons or apps from third-party apps can offer alternate
just
icons.
The one I'm thinking of is so ugly, I don't really expect the designers to come up with alternatives that are any better, but that's very hard.
Apple Maps?
No, I'm all right with Apple Maps. I'm never going to tell you what this app is that I don't like.
I do like the dark mode stuff. Like the dark icons for weather even surprised me. Like they did a good job there. And what's nice is a developer told me you can submit your own versions. So it's not the math is going to happen on things that don't have dark icons or don't have an alternative in the system. So that's where the math is applied, like forcing Facebook or Google's icons to be dark mode or tinted. But if you do submit alternative app icons, you can submit, this is for the tinted mode, this is for the dark mode, this is for the light mode, and show it in the UI that lets users see when they select an icon, which icon they're going to get based on which icon mode they're in. So that's very handy. I'm glad that Apple is forcing it. So I think it's the best of both worlds, because for me personally, I can't stand it when I see a bright white icon. Like if I use Google, I don't, but the icon is a bright white icon with the G in it. But the dark mode changes that white to black with the math or whatever. Great. Google would never do that. They're just never going to update that icon. They don't care about Apple devices that in 6 years from now we'll see a dark mode icon from Google if Apple made it a thing. But no, instead Apple just forced it on the icon and we're done. That's it. That's all I had to do. But then over here at Carrot Weather or Ivory or something, the developers who do care can just submit the things they want so that their artwork can be reflected by their taste and not forced by the math. It's the best of both worlds.
I was thinking, you said Google, I'm thinking Microsoft will never bother changing it, but someone like the Omni Group, I think they already have offered alternatives. They're bound to do it. It's people that are true Mac and iPhone developers, I think, will be into this. So that's good.
Well, we have plenty to talk about today, so the reviews are out there. Go give them a read. Let us know what you think. I would love to know what you guys thought of my review this time. I used bento-style boxes for a lot of the features, just for fun, to see how that would turn out. And so far, I think they look pretty good on our website. I think they arranged really well, and they just present the features. Because I like... I use I say it wrong every time.
Pixelmator by
Sewing.
Oh,
Pixo.
I don't know Pixo.
Right. Yeah. Picsew. I always want to say it wrong because I guess the vowels sounds, I don't know. The way they're arranged, it makes me want to say Pixu, which is not right. Pixo is a stitching app, but for screenshot stitching, my goodness. But it has a feature in there that lets you add device frames. And I've used that for ages because it creates a perfect transparent device frame screenshot. Then I add it to Designer, get a background on it. And that's how you get most of my framed screenshots. You'll see those in the review as well. But those only can be used so many ways. Cut off the top, cut off the bottom, right? That eventually you're using the same image over and over again. So I wanted to differentiate a little bit, especially in such an image-heavy review like this one, and threw in some bentos. So
I usually don't like device frames. Pixelmator Pro has the option as well to do it, and I've been playing a bit more with that lately, but I just feel like I know what the phone looks like. It's the screen you're trying to show me. That's what I'm interested in.
I think the key here is, and I understand it's a taste thing, and there's nothing wrong with your opinion, but I do believe that this is using device frames helps. I don't know, guide your eyes, I suppose. So if it's just I've seen these before where people take 4 screenshots and then just lay them side by side with no gap. If it's just a rectangle with 4 screenshots side by side, you can't see where one starts and one ends, and it's just this jumble of UI. I feel like it's a disservice to the users. I think having the frames, yes, they take up more space, but they also require you to do more thinking when you're laying out the image and everything. But that's a little inside baseball. We can pick up.
I'm almost the opposite. I like 3 images side by side, but I'm a recovering Catholic. It's a triptych. That's the way I look at it. So yes, this is getting off the topic, isn't it? I'm sorry.
Maybe you should make it into stained glass.
It's Apple. I mean, they've done dark this year. Next year, the stained glass version of iOS.
The stained glass.
I'd play with that. Okay.
Yes. Well, so, I don't know. I quite enjoyed the review. I did want to point out, just for the first image in my review might look like device frames on a background, but that is actually a photo. So I just wanted to point that out, that the top image in my review is a photo of my iPhone. I did include a couple of photos as well because I enjoy photography. So I photographed my phone with different backgrounds and lock screens and stuff. But the top hero artwork on the review is a photograph, not a frame, even though it may look that way. I did that on purpose, though, because I thought it would be
There is kind of an obvious question. What in the world did you photograph your iPhone with if you couldn't use your iPhone to do the photography? There's not like other cameras in the world, are there?
No, I have a Sony A7 II. It's aging a little bit. I'm very interested in upgrading at some point, but honestly, it still produces excellent photos. Cameras aren't like other devices. You don't have to upgrade them every year, so
it's another world.
It's a whole other world, and they're very expensive, and mine was very expensive, and upgrading it would cost me a lot of money that I've already spent on a Vision Pro. So the camera that takes beautiful pictures, I'll go ahead and keep. It's not going to take less beautiful pictures over time. It's not like Sony does an update that is going to ruin my picture quality and force me to upgrade my camera, because that's how that works, right? Anyway, just
Actually, I just thought you also bought an iPad Pro, and just last weekend, I still have not worn an Apple Vision Pro, but now they're here in the UK, I was in an Apple store. I was in between a couple of events, and I had a minute to chip in, and in my mind it was, I've got to compare the new iPad Pro to the M1 11-inch one I've got, and it is shockingly
very
light.
nice.
I was so stunned by everybody says, "Oh, it's light," and then you pick it up and think, "No, this is a piece of cardboard. Where's the real thing?" So yes, I envied you quite a lot last Saturday. This episode is brought to you by Zocdoc. Zocdoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. And instantly is the word. Well, doctors also a word, and right, high quality, there's two more. But I'm in the UK, where I obviously can't use America's Zocdoc, and don't get me started on how great our National Health Service is here, but even a hymn of praise to the UK's NHS would not use the word instantly. Whereas with Zocdoc, instantly doesn't just mean it's fast once you've found the doctor you need. It means the entire process is. We're talking about in-network appointments with any of more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every speciality, from mental health to dental health to eye care to skin care and much more. And this is the kicker for me as an Englishman, only familiar with US healthcare from friends telling me all about it. Zocdoc removes a key problem. Ordinarily, if you find a doctor you need, a doctor who is near you, and a doctor who has appointments available, you can then find out that he or she will not take your insurance. And sometimes you can only find that out at the very end of the process. Whereas with Zocdoc, that just isn't a thing. You see the doctors who take your insurance. That's all. I can't actually imagine why all systems don't. Why would you use a system that doesn't do that? But then too, it's great having all this data about insurance and appointments and every healthcare professional's particular specialisms. But on top of all of that, everyone is also rated by verified patients. Plus, Zocdoc appointments, they just happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours of booking, but you can even score same-day appointments. So, you need a doctor. Stop putting off that doctor's appointment and go to Zocdoc.com/AppleInsider to find and to instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's Zocdoc.com. I keep doing that. ZocDoc.com/AppleInsider. Zocdoc.com/AppleInsider. And thank you to Zocdoc for supporting the Apple Insider podcast.
I think this would be a good spot to stick in. Apple just released a new Underdogs video, about 9 minutes in length. I want to know your opinion on this, and I'll let you get to it in a second and describe what the video is about. But it makes me think, man, I am such a dork, but I would totally love even just one Apple TV Plus program to be this ridiculously like Apple centric. Just, I don't know why, but there's something about it that's like, wow, I do this. I use that stuff. They're using that stuff, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a fanboy.
I don't think it would have the legs for a whole hour or a whole series.
No, no. Not an hour, maybe a sitcom. You know, Everybody Loves Raymond, but he has an iPhone.
I mean, the current one, I've forgotten the title, but the Out of Office, the Underdogs Out of Office. It's just under 10 minutes one, and last year's was about 8 minutes, and they're billed as comedies in a way. They're adverts, but they're comedies as well. They are very, very good at the tension of, can these people use these tools in time to do something? And of course they can. Apple's never going to have their own products fail, but it's exceptionally well done and involving and very funny. And I said at the top of the hour, I said I was grumpy, and actually it's this I'm grumpy about. We've been having these now for 5 years, and Apple does a credits at the end for, stickies are a credited point of the video now.
Yes, the products are credited, the apps are credited, but not the actors,
None of the
or
cast,
the designers,
none
or
of the writers,
script writers,
directors.
cast.
I do notice that in the YouTube description there's an original music credit, and I just got to assume whoever that is, because I can't pronounce it, has negotiated a better contract than any of the rest of them. But it bothers me a lot that something that's celebrating creativity under pressure and that is so well done is anonymous in every other way than we used Pages and the Snoopy watch face at some point. So bugs me, but I was delighted to see that it was out, and I watched it instantly, and I feel quite invested with these characters now after 5 years and 4 episodes.
I've realized they're always designing boxes.
Well, yeah, that's the story, isn't it? I don't remember what they originally did when the characters were all in an office. At first, was that packaging there?
Yes, the first episode was about them designing a pizza box.
Yes, and then they span off their own business, which is packaging design, which is
I won't reveal what the latest one is about because I think it's kind of a stinger and I think it's really funny. But yes, the ad I think does a really good job. And let me expand upon my thought here. No, I don't think a TV show featuring Apple products in every 4 seconds would be a good TV show. Of course not. I just mean I don't know. I have enjoyed so far the modern day dramas in Apple TV where people are using Apple products. I'm aware that other movies and films generally do use Apple products. They put a big sticker over the Apple logo to make us not realize it's an orange iMac for some reason, right? Like obviously, but I don't know. It's kind of fun to see that represented in media, and I like the technology there. I like people using it, even though, like we've made the joke before, nobody on earth has ever said, let me Bing that. That's a paid promotion that they inserted into the TV or movie. So I can see how this would make it worse in some ways. But again, I think Apple TV Plus so far has been very tasteful in the way that they've done it. And of course, this is a blatant advertisement. But I don't know. I just thought it was kind of fun having this because all right, if you're in this world and you're an Apple nerd and you're a tech nerd in general, there's probably a not insignificant chance that you're going to see this and be like, oh, I want to show this to my friends or family because this is just a fun ad. How many times have we done that and they'd be like, why are we watching this? Why are we looking at this? Like, what are you showing me right now? And I'm glad that Apple was able to do this kind of presentation in a way that maybe I can show to other people and then not immediately reject it.
I think we make it sound, if you haven't seen any of these, then I think it sounds like Apple just is a parade of devices and things. But it actually, in a weird way, it sounds so strange, it does not feel forced. It's these characters with these devices would do that to do this. It feels natural for what they want. Nobody's going to stop in the middle of their working day and switch to another platform to do something. So yes, there's a lot of them and they're using a lot of these things, but it doesn't feel unnatural. It actually just feels at most
I did
funny.
find it. Yeah, I did find it funny that he used the name drop feature with the concierge, right? Or with the luggage handler.
Forgotten that.
This is like we're going to exchange contact details. I'm like, I don't know. But okay, sure. Yeah, go for it.
Also, you made an adjustment there about what you think about this as a TV show. I want to just say that my perspective is not. Yes, I think if it was all Apple all the time, Apple products, fine. But I think the pacing of these is so well done, but you couldn't continue that for longer than the 8 or 10 minutes.
No. Oh, no. The pacing of this was very much a montage. Like, this would be a part of a TV show, not the entire TV show. Yeah,
it's a thriller, actually. I think more so last year when it was about a MacBook having been stolen. It was a very clear thriller, but it has that rhythm and pace, and it's very hard to support that in the middle of an hour if the whole thing isn't like it, and the whole thing can't be.
If anyone's... Have you seen The Bear?
No. Although I understand it. Lots of Emmy nominations.
No. Yeah, just watch. I don't need you to watch the show, all right? Just watch the first episode. It's like 26 minutes, but it is that It is just 26 minutes of, oh dear God, we're on this roller coaster. Everything is happening. But they execute it so well that I feel like, yeah, a whole season couldn't last that way. I would probably have a heart attack, but like them doing that in one episode was really excellent. But
I think I read the script to that once, but I never got around to watching. Yeah. There's some shows that work so well on the page you rush to see them on screen, and others they work even better on the page. Well, I've seen it now, but I'll go have a look. Proper look at it.
Yeah, I want to continue our media bend. Speaking, you mentioned awards. Apple got what, 11?
This is quite funny.
Was there more?
Yes. The Emmys. It is actually, and this sounds so silly, but it's actually hard to count how many awards a company has got. Last year, Apple itself didn't count the fact that it got an Emmy award for its the Super Bowl halftime show, and I don't know why. It aired on Fox, it got 5 nominations, Apple didn't include it in its own count. This year, the Television Academy made the usual big presentation of all of the awards. They read out, I think it's actually 11 categories within which Apple got, coincidentally, 11 nominations, and that's it. Awards in September. Thank you very much. Good night. And then there are all these other categories that they just didn't bother mentioning that slipped out in a press release. Yep. And of all of those, and the 11 categories included, Apple TV Plus got 72 Emmy nominations, including actually a writing nomination for Slow Horses, which made me particularly... Though actually, personally, I don't know why writing is considered bung that in the press release. Actors, I know, because we see actors and we don't see writers, we don't see directors. I get why some things are more high profile, and the whole purpose of the Emmys is to get people watching. But
yes, but no, I think the way it works is they announce the main categories and then there's all these subcategories and they come out kind of in a press release style. Yeah, no, so of course we cover it. And it's just about the main show, and we get on about our business, we go about our day, and then Apple's like, by the way, you guys said we got 11. Here's a list of 72 Emmy nominations that they got. So, of course, we updated the article, and that's all well and good.
I felt a bit robbed there because I knew there'd be more. I foolishly, I think, actually, I didn't expect all the rest of them to be announced quite so soon. Because actually, I mean, just to add to the complexity, there are multiple Emmy Awards ceremonies. There's the Children Family. Yes, that's it, And I don't know whether Apple's up for Best Hairstyling Award. Yeah. Outstanding Hairstyling in a miniseries or movie, I think, is a category. And actually, I kind of understand that. There you go. There's a winner right there. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I do wonder, William. So we also got another video from Apple this week that might get an Emmy next year. I don't know which one that is. I do. Oh, goodness me. Daphne du Maurier, The Birds, or Alfred Hitchcock, the film Birds. The Privacy one of all these cameras flying around like sparrows, following people's every move until they reach somebody with an iPhone. Yeah, you're saying about pace on the Underdogs one. I think that ad is too long for what it does. Yes. Well, you know what they're going to do, William? This is they run the full length ad on YouTube for us to go find. This full length ad isn't going to play anywhere in the planet. They're going to chop it up and show a stinger, Apple privacy, whatever, at the end of a 3-second ad where there's a bird camera hopping on someone's head, right? So but this extended edition, right, the whole story, I find I enjoyed it. It's not the Underdogs. It's only a few minutes long, and I think it's just well done as far as the details about it's a camera that kind of transforms on they should have played the Transformers theme into kind of a flying bird camera thing, bats at one moment. They look like bats. And they're just following people around, staring at their phones, and the people are kind of catching wind of this and they start running from them. That's where I kind of started getting the feel for the birds, Alfred Hitchcock, and then the one that flew into the window, that was just clearly a callback to the birds as well. And there's just so much of that was just fun. But one detail I noticed, I wonder if you picked up on, is everyone that's getting spied on was using an Android phone.
I thought that was entirely the point.
Yes, but but viewers might be so concerned watching all of the cameras that they might not notice the devices they're using. I know I'm uniquely weird in the fact that I pay attention to every phone and tablet and computer that people use in media. So it was immediately apparent that these aren't iPhones. But I did want to point out that Apple had a missed opportunity here. They didn't show anyone using an iPhone with Chrome installed being spied on.
Okay, right. Yeah, that, I think you've gone further there than I would in that. That's a level of detail beyond which anyway.
So of course, Apple, the end of the ad is, well, after all this scary, terrible stuff being harassed and targeted by these evil camera birds, iPhone users just tap Safari and all the cameras explode around them. The end. And great. Fun. It was a fun little ad there. I don't know what Apple's doing in their ad department, but normally we get the cool ones around Christmas time. So I'm glad we're seeing more of this throughout the year.
I do think, visually, I can't conceive of it being done any better than it was. It's marvelously done, but just a bit.
They spent a lot of money on that ad. You could tell that was a very expensive ad for sure. I'm willing to bet that it was cheaper to make the Underdogs video than it was to make the privacy ad.
Yeah, quite possibly. Underdogs take place racing around Thailand, so that's quite a lot of cast and crew to get over there and stuff. And it must have been an extended
but one
shoot.
CGI camera bird.
Yes.
Yeah, you're already over budget.
This episode is brought to you by FastMail. You've got email, I've got email, and actually, you're going to hear this by the end of the episode. Email is the best way to reach me. It's my favourite way to communicate. But you could well now be thinking, oh, that's nice for him. Whereas for you, email could be this huge mountain every day. It's like the mandatory part of your job that keeps you from doing your work, or sometimes from having lunch. Well, FastMail is built for you. Actually, I think it might as well have been built by you. All of the problems you have with the volume of email, the distractions of it, sometimes, the complexity of it all, these are all the same issues that the makers of FastMail have faced themselves. They've just done something about it. Well, actually, they've just done a lot about it, really. There are so many examples. Custom swipe options, okay? With a flick of your finger, you can deal with some emails just immediately. And then when you have to work a bit harder and read a bit more and just be in and out of emails, well, then FastMail provides folders and labels to help you just sort it out, to organise your way through them as quickly as possible. And then I keep coming back to this one example as proof, it seems to me, that FastMail's developers are clearly FastMail users. And all it is the snooze function. With some email apps, actually including Apple's, snooze, it's meant to remind you of an email later, to let you put it out of your mind for now, and yet, of course, be sure to be reminded of it at the right time. But what most of them do is they might set up a reminder of some description, but they just leave the email in your inbox all the time. So there you are. You're too busy to deal with this, and yet every time you have to launch your email app to go send some mail to someone else, well, there it is. It's still there. That snooze message is in your face, in your inbox. Snoozing should take an email off your plate, take it out of your head, and the only way to do that is to also take it out of your inbox, which is therefore precisely what FastMail does. Here's an email. You can't deal with it now, but it's so important, it'll keep pressing away at your head, except now it won't, because it's gone. It's gone, but FastMail will bring it back at a time you've set, a time when you are able to deal with it. That's such a simple idea, but FastMail does it right where others do it wrong, because I think the makers of FastMail, they get it. This isn't some kind of race to add features for the sake of it. It's a case of making what email users need. Try for yourself. See for yourself. Go make email better for yourself with FastMail. Try FastMail free for 30 days and get 10% off your first year at fastmail.com/AppleInsider. That's FastMail, FastMail.com/AppleInsider. And thanks to FastMail for supporting the Apple Insider podcast.
But of course, that's not all we have to talk about with privacy. A lot is going on in the world, and we won't get into any political stuff here, but of course, the terrible incident in the United States of an attempted assassination led to a oddly specific tech angle that we honestly couldn't have predicted, but I guess we should have known by now, because this happened with San Bernardino, this happened with Pensacola,
Sure.
and the various other shooters and other problems in the United States. And the FBI got a hold of a phone. Now, I wanted to talk about this specifically for two reasons, because this got resolved very quickly. And people were, discovering my article hours after the conclusion of the story. The ARC had finished. The FBI had gotten into this said device. And people were finding my article saying, but they got into it, didn't they? I'm like, well, I didn't know that when I wrote this. So
Right.
I can't predict the future. So people kind of didn't pay attention to timestamps there. But I was prognosticating that, oh no, here we go again. The FBI is going to be knocking on Apple's door, because we didn't know the device. It could have been a Google device, Android, or it could have been an iPhone. And that still hasn't been revealed, probably won't be, whatever. It's not important to the story. And honestly, this assassination attempt isn't important to the story. My prognostication was more concerned of the overall view. If you actually read the words I write, is we're one security incident away from the United States trying to compel Apple to open a backdoor yet again. And I think it's really important that, despite it not being the front page, despite it not being on our minds continuously, that we should always keep it somewhere in the back of our mind that this is a threat, that there are, not just in the United States but around the world, governments that don't understand technologies, that want to give good guys access to devices, right? Quote unquote good guys, back doors to encryption, but that's not how encryption works. A door is a door. Bad guys can use it too. So all that said, I just found it interestingly timely that I wrote this. And then here we are a day later, learning about Celebrite and their hacking devices, not working on the latest iPhones, running the latest operating systems. What do you know about that?
I think there's some people at Apple Park having a nice lunch, thinking, finally, we beat them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened is a very specific leak of documents, and the documents are dated April 2024, so things could have changed, but there's this long list of iPhones that, as of that moment, cannot be unlocked by the Celebrite software. Some of them are listed as coming soon, which might be optimistic, might be true. Others are in research, which sounds like we haven't figured this out yet. But again, at some point, they probably all were in research.
Sure.
But ultimately, right now, if you have an iPhone newer than 5 years old and you've updated it to iOS 17.4 or later, Celebrite can't unlock it. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I sound like I'm anti-law enforcement there, but no. I'm not.
It's a complicated discussion. Well, so basically what's happened is in iOS 17.4, whatever hole Celebrite found to get into iPhones has been patched. It's as simple as that. And they will just find a different hole and go with that route in 17.4 and above when they find it. That's why it's in progress. It's not a if, it's a when. They will find. There's always exploit software. It's not perfect. It's not impenetrable. But right now it is protected. And it just it circles back on the discussion of the assassin's phone. In this case, the FBI, either it was an Android device, and those are easier to get into. They're less so. Don't let me be biased. Today they have enclaves like Apple's Secure Enclave on device. They have end-to-end encrypted systems that require passwords to unlock the encrypted side of things. They've emulated Apple in a lot of ways that direction for the better. Like I think it's good that Android users have access to similar security protections that iPhone users do, but they're also notoriously easier to get into because there's just more holes, to use the same analogy as before. There's more holes in the Android side of things to crawl into to find your way into a system than on Apple's, because Apple controls the whole stack. Android less so, because you have the hardware stack and the software stack being controlled by multiple different companies. So they're easier generally to get into. So either the phone was Android and that was the case and they were able to just bypass it using one of the many ways to do so, or it was an iPhone running iOS 17.3. right? That's, or 17, or iOS 16, or what have you, or is an older iPhone device. It could have been an iPhone 10. We don't know. But in this case, they succeeded in getting through. But had they not, it would have been pandemonium yet again, and there would have been subpoenas and courts and Tim Cook on the stand telling them that that's not how iOS works. And while it didn't happen this time, I will say, given the state of the world that we're in, it feels like it's inevitable that it will happen again, and we will be having this discussion again. So that piece that I wrote may be about an assassination attempt that happened this past week. It might be about, them not being able to get in the phone at that second, and then I think 2 hours later actually getting into it.
There is actually
but the information in between, in between all of that, I think is the timely conversation that we should be having.
Yes, I agree. But there is actually a third option, given how fast it was. Maybe somebody in the shooter's family knew his passcode. It could be as simple as that.
And but the family is cooperating. Yes.
No question, you're right. This is going to come up again, and not, I think, just from Apple or Google should be doing this, but also it's very easy for politicians to blame Apple and Google. Well, we've just had a government change here, but the last lot, at one point, the Conservative government in the UK actually said they were in discussions with Apple to get a backdoor into iOS. And at the time, Apple basically said, who?
No.
They had never even been contacted, and that's what our government was saying publicly. And it's just,
it's all politics.
It is.
Again, we're not getting into on this show. But technology, part of the discussion, wanted to mention it here. And of course, as always, please feel free to reach out, talk to us, let us know what you think about this privacy debacle. I still am on the side of consumer privacy protections, encryption, all of that is very important. And if we give that up, there's no going back.
Yes.
There's absolutely. There are other ways through these systems, be it paying the Israeli firm Celebrite some unknown sum of money to get access to their hacking tools because they found not a backdoor, but a route through the encryption that Apple hasn't patched yet, right? That is one of many ways. Of course, there's also the option of just not relying on the phone for investigations. But let's get off this very dreary subject and talk about something a little bit more fun, like advertisements.
I did not know where that was going to go then, but okay. Actually, in this case, though, I know what you mean, and I know it because you explained it to me. What's the name of the company that Apple's just signed a deal with? Taboola or something?
Taboola.
Right. You said to me, and I've lost it again, chum something. What's the type of ads you were explaining to me?
It's the Chum Bucket from SpongeBob SquarePants. No, I'm joking.
No. Oh.
It is a Chumbox. Chumbox ads are... So if anyone navigating the internet has seen them before, I guarantee it. At the bottom of any article or any website that has these kinds of ads, you will see 6 doctors agree that this will kill you, or this has a box of puppies. You'll never know what the other thing in there is, or click here to find out what the top 7 things this Kardashian thinks, right? Like, it's just, that is a Chumbox ad, and Taboola is famous for them. Basically, or infamous, I suppose. And they're an increasingly wealthy ad firm, big enough and wealthy enough, apparently, to climb into bed with Apple. So, what do you know about this situation?
Well, I hadn't heard the word before, but I've seen those ads and I have resisted them. But if trying to forget, shall we say, the quality of headlines that they produce, what you just said then about them being big enough. That's the issue. It's a global network, so Apple is able to use one company worldwide, and you can see the appeal of that. There is
an opportunity to have a rational discussion here. Apple could be, there is a possibility, now hear me out, working with them to use their network to produce good ads. Now, this is all about Apple News. I don't know if we've said that yet. So Apple has partnered with Taboola to provide ads for Apple News.
Oh, and also the Apple Stocks app, which I had no idea had ads in, because when do I ever open the Stocks app? But apparently
it's run by Apple News. It's just like a subcategory of Apple News, basically.
Fair enough. You think You think there's a future there, a good future?
Well, I only wanted to have this discussion because there's people out there. I've seen this before. Well, I pay for Apple News Plus. Why don't I get an ad-free experience for all of Apple News? Well, there's many reasons, but the simplest answer is Apple News is a news aggregating app. Apple serving AppleInsider articles, for example, isn't Apple running AppleInsider and publishing articles on Apple News, right? They're gathering URLs from the internet like an RSS client and pushing them into their device. And when someone opens an article in Apple News, they're 9 times out of 10 going to open it in Apple News in a format for Apple News. And if that content is being shown to the user without going to the website, the publisher needs to be paid somehow. And that is done by having embedded ads, just like the website would have within the article on Apple News. So it's a symbiotic relationship. You cannot, unless Apple closed off Apple News and said no one gets in unless you participate in a paid subscription service, and it just becomes very complex after that. And then they have to divvy out the payments, and you just can't do a news aggregator ad-free. I don't think, like, there could be an ad-free section. Apple News Plus technically is an ad-free section filled with magazines, which have ads in them, or, premium content from various publishers that don't have ads, which is a nicer experience. But the overall app, getting all of the web's information from all of these sources that use Apple News, has to have some kind of monetization strategy, and the only way to do that is ads. So just to make it clear, it's right now impossible. I don't know of a way to do it that would make sense, in given the current model of Apple News, to not have ads. So in this world where we need ads for this app to function, where do we get them from? And Apple News has been notorious for being terrible about ads. I don't even understand where half of these things come from. They're certainly not, and okay, to be fair, Google ads are garbage too. I'm advertised different kinds of women's underwear and cheese that will make my muscles grow. I don't know, Google ads are just absolutely out of this world lately. Or take this quiz and to find out if you're as smart as Steve Jobs or whatever. Like, that's the kind of Google ads I'm seeing. So they're all bad. And maybe, I don't know, working with Taboola, getting under one roof, advertising wise, maybe they'll have a little more control and be able to control the quality a little bit more. But more cynical take is, actually, no, this is just going to be bad. It's just going to be worse. We're going to see your doctor about these different kinds of skin conditions within, that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's just terrible.
I realize one thing we don't know is whether Apple has kind of seeded the whole thing to this company. As when I worked on radiotimes.com, the system they had there was that they had a small little ad sales team that sold as many ads as they could, and whenever there was always so many slots on the page on Radio Times. If they couldn't fill them, they handed that slot over to what was called a network ad, and there would be a company that would get bids for people, and any company could bid to be on Radio Times through it. So it meant for the magazine, they got lesser quality, cheaper ads appearing every now and again, but at least all the holes were filled through this company. I don't know whether Apple is going to carry on selling itself and letting these people in the holes, but we'll see. I imagine we'll see quite a lot. Yeah.
If I had a wish for Apple in the advertising game, is that I've seen other people say Apple doesn't need ads. I get the point you're making, but they're already in the business. They're not leaving it. No. So my argument would be is, if Apple's going to be in ads for the App Store and for Apple News, because that's the only places they have an ad business right now, do it better. Just do the Apple thing and find a way to do it better. Because right now what Apple is doing, especially in Apple News, is they're doing what the rest of the web is doing, is they're just selling banners and sidebar things that get automatically populated based on some sort of IP address data aggregate or whatever, right? They're auctioning off these ads, and they're all terrible because nobody. I have yet to meet a human being who's seen an ad and said, "I'm going to click on that. I'm going to follow through. I'm going to buy the thing they're selling me." Like,
Presumably enough do that it's worth them carrying on, but
apparently there's this business of billions of people apparently doing this, but I just haven't met any of them. Maybe I just don't live in the right circles or something. But
actually, sorry, I just put this together in my head. You are the perfect person to ask this. Adverts for games. Yeah, in so many iPhone apps, there'll be a little commercial for a game. Without fail, the game looks so awful and so amateur and just embarrassment to have it on my screen. I come away thinking all iPhone games are dreadful. Is it just the dreadful ones that advertise? Are they good?
So are you talking about like Clash of Clans and Genshin Impact and stuff like that?
I can't say any of the names have ever gone into my head. I just thought,
right.
Really?
Or are you talking about the little stick figure guy and there's like a pool of lava and a pull chain saying, pull this chain and save the lady in the gold, and I don't know, like, because those are obviously
the sort of thing. Yeah, sure.
Well, those are not real games, and those are actually phishing ads that force you to go to a website that try to sell you something. Someone has actually, I don't have the website offhand. You're just gonna have to find it, but someone actually went and said, "Hey, you know all those dumb ad games that don't exist? I went and made those and put them into an app so you can go and try them. They're all terrible." But yeah, they're all fake clickbait. Basically, they're like trying to entice you to click on the ad. It's forcing you to like try to participate in this game when in fact all it does is redirect you to an ad website that tries to sell you something. But if you're talking about actual app advertisements, they have money. They're gonna advertise. That's just the internet. Do they look bad? They probably just look bad to you. Clash of Clans is one of the most popular games on the planet. I don't know. For some reason, people still play it. I don't play it, but like they're successful for a reason. They're addicting. People like them. Ads work, I guess. But for me, being the conscious consumer that I am, I don't need advertising. Other people do, generally speaking. The point of advertising is to inform the consumer that your product exists. The whole idea is, I don't know, 200 years ago we figured out, I don't know, maybe centuries ago, but I'm talking about more modern venues, not poster board on the side of the Greek market. I'm talking about modern advertising exists as a part of capitalism to say, I have a product that you want, but you don't know that you want it until you just saw this billboard for it. And then we've commoditized that to the point of flashing Java banners and Yahoo Internet Explorer toolbars, right? Like that, and that was the bottom, and that was terrible for the internet. And then we've crawled out of that terrible hole, and now here we are today with Google's version of it, which is better than that adware garbage, but still not that great. And I still think there's a better way to advertise. Because technically speaking, we need it. How else do you discover new things? Yeah. It's just we've gone down this rabbit hole of making it the race to the bottom to where anything can be an ad. You can advertise politics. You can advertise apps or toothbrushes, and it's lost all meaning. We're no longer trying to say, hey, my thing is so amazing, come see it. No, now ads are about, here's this link on my webpage. I don't care what it shows. As long as a detector in the code can detect that your eyes or your browser page stayed on this ad long enough, we can pay pennies on the dollar to the website for you seeing this thing. It doesn't matter what it is. And now because of that part, because of the doesn't matter part, they can show you whatever they want. And it's just and the race seems to be continuing. They're just continuing to make these things worse. So I posit through this whole discussion that we've had 5 minutes on ads, that Apple could maybe prove they can do it better, because yeah, sure. There's consumers like me out there that get their information from other resources, journalism, blogs, whatever. So I personally don't always need advertising. I know what socks I want to buy. I know what clothes that I like to have. I know what video games I'm going to buy because I get the information from other places. But ads do serve a purpose. Maybe you didn't know this movie existed. Maybe you didn't know this product existed, or this perfect, like this in the perfect world, Google knowing what you just bought at Walgreens and what geographic location that you're in and what relationship you have to McDonald's will produce the perfect ad for the toothpaste that you've always wanted. Okay, sure. That maybe in a perfect world that could technically work, but I think it's broken. And yet Apple is following the same path as everyone else in this race to the bottom of showing this garbage in Apple News. And maybe we deserve better, and maybe Apple could show us what's better, but they haven't yet.
Is this a good or a bad time to advertise AppleInsider Plus?
There are good ads. Like you mentioned, there's ads on our podcast. The partners for Apple Insider, we select. We don't just let anyone come in. We reject some of them because they're just not good products, or they just don't belong on our podcast. And then the people who don't want to hear those ads can pay money for Apple Insider Plus. And so this has turned into an advertisement for a program that you enjoy, that you listen to, and maybe you didn't know that, hey, I can get this ad free and get a bonus segment. Guess what? I just advertised to you, but was that useful? Probably, right?
I actually studied marketing. I did a computer course in college and had an option of more maths, which I was weak on at the time, or marketing. And I took marketing, believing it would be easier, and it wasn't. But what I really learned was the entire point of marketing is you have a product, you find the person who will like it, that it will be useful for, and you get it to them so they are aware of it. My marketing lecturer had this phrase for the opposite, the just sort of mass advertising. He called that spray and pray. You just shout at everybody, whereas marketing should be rifle shot, he called it. These days, that's possibly not a great term, but he meant directed for it. And I always felt that with things like Apple Insider Plus, we're telling you about this thing because we think you will like it. And that feels right to me. I have nothing against advertising at all, except for the dreadful games that I'm now even more suspicious of on my iPhone, thanks to you.
Have I said anything crazy here? I genuinely believe that there is a place in the world for advertising and commercials or what have you. It's just, it's gotten so bad. And now here we are at this weird place in the internet. And I know we got to conclude. We're in this weird place in the internet where Google and companies like it have spent the last 20 years telling everyone, this is how you monetize the internet. And then they pulled the rug out from under us with this AI business that isn't really AI, and claiming that, oh, it's all safe, it's all kosher, all this data that we've collected about you promising to deliver ads is actually now going to undermine your business, right? And so in the race to the bottom, and we're showing worse and worse ads, and we're making a worse and worse internet, now we're being told that all of that is worthless, and advertising can't pay the bills anymore, and AI is the future. And now we're just kind of like, what was the point then? And I guess the point was to get all of our data so they can train these bots. I don't know what the answer is, what's next for the internet, but I will say more tasteful, better advertising could be a start. And that's where partnerships come in. That's where collaborations come in. That's why when you see sponsored content on Apple Insider, that isn't us saying, hey, this guy just paid us to talk about this garbage. No, it's because we had an honest thought that maybe this might be something useful to somebody. And yeah, there's money exchanged in the background, but that's how our business can exist. And
actually, sorry, you've just reminded me, this is not Apple Insider, and this is, I can't even remember what firm it was. 15 years ago, something like that. I was doing something else. No, I wasn't looking for advertisers or anything like that, but I was approached by a mattress company who said, if you write something good about us and keep it up for a year, we'll pay you $20. And I went back to them and saying, look, whatever the topic was, it was nothing to do with beds. There's no way this is of any interest to my listeners of viewers, whatever it was. And they came and said, all right, $30. So, I stopped that conversation there, but okay.
Well, I would like to say this is the Apple Insider Podcast. It's a tech show, and part of tech, I suppose, is this. I mean, this discussion that we've been having, and so I would like to hear what you guys have to say about, how do you feel about advertising? Do you go about your day and use TikTok and Instagram and just swipe past the ads and not even think about it? Do you find any of them useful? Have you ever clicked on something in an ad and bought it? I know, the whole thing, it feels like it's a contract that's broken, and maybe Apple can fix it. Maybe someone else can fix it. I don't know. Maybe Google is shooting itself in the foot here and is going to break the internet for a couple of years until we figure out a new way to monetize it. But I just find the whole thing very interesting as a discussion, and a good place to end the show. There's more that we could have covered. We'll probably throw it in the show notes anyway. Apple's selling some iPhones. They do good money there. Their stock market price went up very quickly because people think that Apple Intelligence is going to drive an iPhone 16 super cycle. Lots of stuff like that. But good show today, William. I think people want to have this conversation, continue it. Maybe they want to find you on the internet. Where can they find you?
I've been saying this a lot, Lucy. In fact, I said it during the ad read, which I just mentioned now. The email is the one for me. One of our sponsors is FastMail, and I think it's just an amazing service. For contacting people, email is my favourite way because I just enjoy that form of sometimes long-form communication rather than the odd little tweet. But you're more of not a tweeter, you're a mastodon-er, aren't you?
Yeah, toot is their verb,
Toot.
I suppose. Yeah, because it's an elephant and they toot with their trunk, or maybe it's a trumpet. They've because people have used trumpets there as well. Yeah, it's a very silly name that people have tried to get rid of. They tried to call it post for a while, but the word toot keeps coming back, so I think it's here to stay. I use Mastodon. It's where I am. You can always follow me there, chat with me. Please, of course, have a discussion about the podcast. I love to hear from you. Email can be found for me and William both on any article that we've written. And reach out, talk to us about the show, talk to us about nasty old advertising, and leave a review. We've been getting some excellent reviews on the podcast app. You can review us there, or any podcast app of your choice. I believe Overcast lets you do stars. There's all these different ways that you can rate the show or have discussions about it. Just, reach out and let us know what you think. Always happy to hear.
Plus, of course, you're often on HomeKit Insider, Apple Insider's Monday morning. Sorry, I had a time zone flip there. It's middle of the night for me when that pops up.
I believe I'll be missing out on the next couple episodes. And as well, here on Apple Insider, I will be on vacation. So you won't probably not hear me next week, and you certainly won't hear me the week after. And but I will return to discuss the future, and I won't reveal the plans for them because I don't think we know yet. And but yes, I will be back from vacation eventually. So if you do not hear me for a couple of weeks, don't worry, I will return.
Vacation of. Oh, I know. I mistakenly ticked the vocation box when I started that. That's where I went wrong, isn't it? Clearly.
Of course. Well, I'd like to thank our... you're fine. I'd like to thank our sponsors once again, Zocdoc and FastMail, and thank everyone for listening. And stick around for Apple Insider Plus. It's going to be a fun one. Wearable technology and our history and our favorite ideas around it. And we'll talk to you guys next week.